The morning sunlight slipped into Amina's small bedroom, touching everything with a warm glow. It was the kind of light that made the world look softer, safer, almost like a blessing. Amina stood in front of the mirror, holding her wedding dress against her chest. Her eyes were gentle, full of hope and a little nervous. She was a quiet, soft-spoken woman, the kind who smiled more with her eyes than her lips. For her, this dress was more than lace and fabric. It was a memory stitched into cloth. Her late mother had started designing it before she passed away, and even though a local tailor finished the rest, the dress still carried her mother's love. Every fold of the cloth felt like an embrace. Every bead reminded her of a moment they shared. It wasn't just something she would wear. It was something she would carry into the next chapter of her life. Amina placed the dress carefully on the bed, smoothing it as if it could feel pain. She whispered to herself, "Mama, I hope I make you proud." Just then, the door swung open. Zara walked in. Her older sister moved with sharp steps, her expression unreadable. Zara was everything Amina was not: bold, loud when angry, and always trying to hide the storm inside her. She carried a strong presence, like she filled the whole room, even when she said nothing. But today, there was a strange tension in her eyes, something dark and unsettled. She looked at the dress for a few seconds longer than normal. "Still working on this?" she said, her voice flat. Amina nodded with a small smile, trying to ignore the coldness. "It's almost ready. I can't believe the wedding is so close." Zara crossed her arms. "Yeah, close." There was a heaviness in that one word, something Amina felt but didn't understand completely. The sisters had always been different. After their mother died, Zara became the strong one, the responsible one, the one who picked up all the burdens. She cooked, cleaned, fought with bills, and tried to raise Amina even though she was barely an adult herself. But instead of bringing them closer, those years had created gaps, deep ones. Amina grew up quiet, protected, and loved. Zara grew up fast, tired, and invisible. And even now, years later, that pain still lived inside her. Amina tried to talk about the wedding plans, hoping to lighten the mood, but Zara only gave short replies. The air between them felt heavy, like something had been waiting too long to be said. When Zara finally left the room, Amina let out a slow breath. Her heart felt uneasy, as if a shadow had passed over her bright morning. She turned back to the dress, touching it again. The softness calmed her. It reminded her that even though life had broken many things, love still survived. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Everything will be okay. It has to be." And even though something inside her didn't fully believe it, she held on to that hope, hoping the weeks ahead would bring peace, not pain. She had no idea what storm was already on its way. The days leading up to the wedding were supposed to be joyful, filled with laughter, planning, and shared memories. But for Amina and Zara, every day felt heavier than the last. The small cracks in their relationship, cracks that had been there for years, started to widen. Amina sat in the living room, sorting through a box of decorations. Soft ribbons, small candles, and delicate flowers filled the space around her. She hummed quietly, trying to keep her heart light. But every few minutes, her eyes drifted toward the hallway, waiting to see if Zara would join her. Maybe today would be different. Maybe today they would get along. But Zara walked past her, barely looking at the box. Amina forced a smile. "Zara, can you help me choose the centerpieces? I can't decide between the white candles or the gold ones." Zara didn't stop walking. "Use whatever you want. You always do." The words felt like a slap. Amina blinked, surprised. I just wanted your opinion." Zara turned back, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "My opinion never mattered. Not when Mama was alive. Not now." Then she walked away before Amina could respond. Amina's chest tightened. She knew Zara could be harsh, but this was different. This felt personal. That night, Amina sat in her room and remembered their childhood, the ways Zara had stepped into the role of mother before she even had a chance to be a teenager. After their mother passed away, life became harder. Bills piled up. The house felt empty. Their father drowned himself in work to avoid grief. And in the middle of it all stood Zara. She cooked dinner. She checked homework. She packed lunches. She fought with teachers, doctors, and relatives. She carried everything on her small, tired shoulders. Meanwhile, Amina, still young, was sheltered from the worst of it. She didn't see the nights when Zara cried alone. She didn't know the sacrifices. She didn't understand the weight. But Zara remembered. She remembered everything. And now, with Amina's wedding approaching, those old memories were rising again, making Zara feel like she was losing the only person she had tried so hard to protect. The next morning, Amina found her wedding invitation card scattered on the dining table. Some were bent, some were out of order. Zara stood nearby, pretending to organize the kitchen shelves. "Zara, did you move these?" Amina asked gently. Zara didn't look at her. They were in the way. "You bent half of them," Amina said softly. Zara shrugged. "There are more. You'll be fine." Amina swallowed hard. It wasn't the cards. It wasn't the decorations. It was everything behind Zara's voice, her frustration, her anger, her silent pain. Amina spoke quietly, afraid of triggering another argument. "Zara, did I do something wrong?" Zara finally turned. Her eyes were tired, wounded. "You didn't have to do anything. You've always had everything." The words cut deeper than Zara expected. Amina froze. "Everything? Zara, I never—" "You were Mama's favorite." Zara snapped. "She held you more. She comforted you more. And when she died, I was the one who lost everything. You still had love. I had responsibility." Amina's breath caught. She had never heard Zara admit this. Never in all those years. "But Zara," Amina whispered, voice trembling, "I never wanted you to feel alone." "Well," Zara said bitterly, "you didn't stop it from happening." And with that, she walked out of the room. Later that evening, Hamza came to visit. He listened quietly as Amina tried to explain what was happening. Her voice trembled with confusion and sadness. "She's been acting strange," Amina said softly. "Some days she helps. Other days she hurts things. I don't understand her anymore." Hamza placed a gentle hand on hers. "Amina, she's hurting. Maybe more than you know. But you're not responsible for her wounds." Amina nodded, but her eyes were full of worry. "I don't want to lose her." "You won't," Hamza said, "but you also can't let her destroy your peace." His calm voice soothed her, but the fear inside her didn't fade. Something in Zara's eyes lately, something sharp and unstable, made her uneasy. By the end of the week, even small things turned into sparks. Zara, accidentally, dropped a tray of wedding favors. She misplaced important papers. She snapped at Amina over tiny details. Every moment felt like walking on thin ice. Amina tried to stay patient, tried to understand, but each day felt harder. She felt her fear growing. Fear of Zara's temper, fear of what might come next, fear that the sister she loved was slipping away. Yet despite everything, Amina still whispered to herself at night, "Maybe tomorrow will be better." She didn't know tomorrow would be the day everything shattered. The morning of the incident began like any other, quiet and calm on the outside, but heavy underneath. Amina returned from the tailor's shop, holding her wedding dress in a long white garment bag. She handled it with so much care it looked like she was carrying a newborn child. Her face glowed with excitement, but her hands trembled as if she sensed trouble waiting somewhere nearby. When she entered the house, Zara was sitting on the sofa, staring at the wall. She didn't look up until she heard the rustle of plastic and fabric. Amina smiled softly. "Zara, it's ready. The final fitting is perfect." Zara lifted her eyes, and for a moment, something painful flashed in them, something between jealousy and sadness. Her fingers tightened into fists on her lap. "Great," she said flatly. "Another thing to celebrate." Amina hesitated. She had learned by now to be careful. "Do you want to see it?" Zara held her breath for a few seconds before nodding. "Fine." Amina unzipped the bag, and the dress unfolded like a soft cloud. White fabric, delicate embroidery, small pearls catching the sunlight. It was beautiful in a quiet, emotional way, just like Amina, and every detail still carried the memory of their mother. Zara stepped closer. Her eyes softened, then hardened again as if she were fighting two emotions at once. "It's nice," she muttered, turning away too quickly. Amina didn't push. She carefully hung the dress in her room, making sure it was safe, making sure it wouldn't wrinkle. She ran her fingers over the lace, whispering a small prayer. Her mother had sewn that very lace years ago, never knowing her daughter would wear it someday. Throughout the day, the house buzzed with family members coming and going, relatives dropping off gifts, neighbors checking on wedding plans, people offering advice Amina didn't ask for. Everyone laughed, talked, and filled the home with noise. Everyone except Zara. She stayed in the kitchen or her room, walking around like a quiet shadow. Every time someone said Amina's name, Zara's expression changed, tightened, dimmed, or darkened with something she didn't want anyone to see. In the afternoon, a relative commented, "Amina is glowing. She looks just like her mother today." Zara froze. Her face went blank, but a storm began behind her eyes. Another relative added, "Your mother would be so proud of her. She was always her little angel." Zara set a plate down too hard. It cracked. Everyone looked. She forced a smile. "It slipped," she said, but inside, something dangerous had shifted. Later in the evening, the house finally quieted down. Amina went to the kitchen to make tea. Zara came a moment later, her steps uneven, her breathing tight. She had been holding herself together all day, but now the mask began to slip. Amina tried to ease the tension. "You've been quiet today. Are you okay?" Zara leaned against the counter, her eyes dark and distant, just tired. Amina nodded. "I know the wedding planning has been a lot for you too. Thank you for helping." Zara's jaw twitched. "Helping? Everyone is praising you. Everyone loves you. Nobody even sees me." Amina blinked. "That's not true. I see you, Zara." "No," Zara whispered, her voice cracking. "You see what you want to see." Amina gently touched her arm. "I never wanted to hurt you." Zara pulled her arm away. "But you do, just by existing." Those words felt like a punch to the chest. Amina didn't speak. She didn't know what to say. She watched as Zara stormed out of the kitchen, her steps shaking. Something inside Amina whispered, "Leave her alone for now. She's not herself." She didn't know how true that was. Night fell. The house grew quiet. Amina went to her room to check on her dress one last time. She smiled at it gently, whispering to her mother again, thanking her for being with her through every stitch. Zara watched from the hallway. Her heart thudded hard in her chest. Her mind raced with old memories. Her mother hugging Amina, telling her she was pretty, comforting her when she cried. Meanwhile, Zara remembered days she cried alone, days she broke under responsibilities no one thanked her for. A voice inside her whispered, "It was always her. She always got the love you never received." Her breathing grew uneven. Without thinking, without planning, she walked into the room after Amina left. She stared at the dress. Her hands shook violently. Tears filled her eyes, but they weren't soft tears. They were loud, painful, angry tears she had hidden for years. She touched the lace, her mother's lace. In that moment, the hurt exploded. Before she could stop herself, she grabbed a lighter from Amina's drawer, the one she used for candles, and flicked it on. The flame danced. Zara whispered, "Why wasn't I enough?" Then she touched the flame to the bottom edge of the dress. The fire caught quickly. The lace curled, darkened, then burst into orange. Within seconds, the dress was burning. Zara stepped back, horrified but frozen. She didn't shout. She didn't stop it. She just watched the flames climb higher, destroying the last piece of their mother's love. When the fire died down, only black ashes and scorched fabric remained. Zara sank to the floor, shaking. "What did I do?" she whispered. But the answer didn't come. Amina returned to her room humming softly, carrying fresh flowers. The moment she stepped inside, the smell of smoke hit her. Her heart stopped. Her eyes moved slowly, too slowly, toward the burned shape on the floor. She dropped the flowers. "No," Amina whispered, barely breathing. "No, no, please, no." She fell to her knees, hands shaking as she touched the charred remains. Tears poured from her eyes. Her voice cracked in pain, a sound so raw and broken the whole house froze. Zara stood in the doorway, face pale, tears spilling down her cheeks. But she couldn't speak. She couldn't step forward. She stood trapped between guilt and fear. Family members rushed in. Shouts filled the house. Who burned it? What happened? Where's Amina? Amid all the noise, Amina held a piece of burnt lace, pressing it to her chest as if trying to save something already gone. Hamza ran in last. When he saw her, his face broke. He knelt beside her, wrapping his arms around her as she shook violently. "We'll get through this," he whispered. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." But Amina didn't hear him. All she could see was the dress and everything it meant, turning to ash. The night after the fire felt longer than any night Amina had ever lived through. The house was silent, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was a heavy kind, the kind that pressed on your chest and made it hard to breathe. Amina sat on the floor of her room long after everyone else had gone to bed. The lights were dim, and the scent of burnt fabric still lingered in the air. In front of her were the ashes of her mother's dress, gathered gently into a small box. She had done it herself, with trembling hands, unable to leave even a single burnt thread behind. Her heart felt hollow, like something inside her had broken in a way that couldn't be fixed. She remembered her mother's smile, her warm voice, her gentle hands guiding the needle through fabric. She remembered nights sitting beside her, listening to stories, and dreaming of her future wedding. Now that dream felt smashed, shattered, ruined. Amina wrapped her arms around herself and cried again, her sobs soft but endless. She didn't cry only for the dress. She cried for her mother, for the sister she no longer recognized, and for the part of herself that felt lost forever. In the room across the hall, Zara sat on the edge of her bed, rocking slightly, unable to calm her shaking hands. She had washed her face over and over, hoping the guilt would wash away with the tears. But it didn't. It sat in her chest like a stone, crushing her breath. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the flames again. She heard the fire crackling. She heard Amina's scream echo in her mind. She saw the horror on her sister's face, the betrayal, the pain, the disbelief. Zara pressed her hands against her ears, trying to block the memory. But the guilt only grew louder. She wanted to go to Amina. She wanted to fall to her knees and beg for forgiveness. But fear held her back. What if Amina never forgave her? What if Amina pushed her away forever? What if she had destroyed not just a dress, but their entire relationship? So Zara stayed in her room, trapped in the prison of her own regret. The next morning, Amina didn't come out of her room. She didn't answer when family members knocked on her door. She didn't respond when someone asked if she had eaten. Her silence worried everyone. She sat on her bed with empty eyes, staring at the window. She felt small, fragile, like someone had taken a piece of her heart and left nothing in its place. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "How could she do that to me?" she said to no one. "How could my own sister do this?" She wasn't angry, not yet. She was hurt, deeply, completely. By afternoon, relatives and neighbors had heard what happened. The house filled with whispers, shocked expressions, and judgmental comments. How could Zara do such a thing? She's always had a temper. Amina should stay away from her. She ruined her own sister's life. Each comment made Amina's heart sink. She didn't want to hate Zara. She didn't want people to talk about her like that. But she also couldn't defend her. Not now. Not after what she had done. Some relatives pulled Amina aside. "Listen," one aunt said, "you need to think about yourself now. Zara's problems aren't your responsibility." "You shouldn't forgive her," another relative insisted. She crossed a line. Their words twisted inside Amina, creating confusion, guilt, and fear. She didn't want to choose between family and peace. But it felt like the world was pushing her to. When Hamza arrived that evening, he found Amina sitting quietly on the edge of her bed, staring at the box filled with ashes. She didn't look up until he sat beside her. He didn't ask what she needed. He already knew. She needed someone who wouldn't leave her, someone steady, someone who could hold her heart together while it tried to heal. "Amina," he said gently, You don't have to pretend to be strong." She broke again. Tears streamed down her face as she leaned into him, her voice shaking. It wasn't just a dress. Hamza, it was Mama. It was the last thing she made for me, and it's gone. Hamza held her close. "I know. I'm so sorry. But listen to me. Your mother's love didn't burn. It's still in you." Amina cried harder, but her body relaxed against him just a little. His calm voice, his steady presence, helped her breathe again. "She broke my heart," Amina whispered. "I don't know if I can ever forgive her." Hamza brushed her tears gently. "You don't have to decide that today. Healing takes time, and I'll be with you through all of it." That night, Amina lay awake staring at the ceiling. Zara's face kept flashing in her mind, her anger, her pain, her regret. Amina wanted to understand, but her hurt was still too fresh. Why would she destroy something so important to me? Amina whispered into the darkness. She felt torn between love and pain, between loyalty and betrayal. Somewhere deep inside, she still loved her sister. But the wound Zara had opened was deep, too deep to ignore. Amina turned toward the window, letting the moonlight fall over her face. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know how she would face Zara. All she knew was that something inside her had changed forever. The morning light crept into Amina's room slowly, as if even the sun was afraid to disturb her. She woke up feeling tired, as though her heart had been carrying a heavy load all night. The box of ashes sat on her table, a quiet reminder of everything she had lost. The house felt different now, quieter, colder. Everyone walked softly, speaking in low whispers, as if afraid loud voices might break Amina even more. She appreciated the silence, yet it also made her feel strangely alone. Today was supposed to be a joyful day. It was supposed to be filled with excitement, laughter, and celebration. Instead, Amina sat on her bed like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, unsure of where to go next. She touched the edge of the small box and closed her eyes. "Mama," she whispered, "what I do now?" But the ashes didn't answer. Amina's wedding was only a few days away. In moments of quiet, she could almost hear the ticking clock, reminding her that time was running out. Normally, a bride would be trying on jewelry, approving decorations, or choosing henna designs. But Amina didn't have the strength to care about any of it, not without the dress. Her mother's dress was supposed to be her connection to the past, the piece of her mother she could carry into her future. Wearing it had been her dream since she was a little girl. Now she couldn't even look at the ashes without feeling her throat tighten. Her relatives tried to hide their concern, but Amina heard them whispering, "How will she get married now? She doesn't even have a dress. Poor girl, everything is ruined." The words pierced her heart, each one reminding her of what she had lost. Even when Amina tried to focus on anything else, Zara's face appeared in her thoughts. Crying, trembling, lost. Amina didn't know what to feel anymore. One moment she felt anger, the next grief, and sometimes even guilt. Why did she do it? Why did she hate me so much? Amina whispered into her pillow. But deep down, she knew Zara didn't hate her. She saw the pain in Zara's eyes that day. She saw the apology buried beneath fear and jealousy. Still, love didn't erase the damage. Not yet. Amina felt torn between her broken trust and the memory of a sister she used to know. The distance between them felt like an ocean, too wide to cross. Not now. Maybe not ever. When Hamza visited later that day, Amina didn't even try to fake a smile. She sat in the courtyard, wrapped in a shawl, staring at nothing. "What are you thinking about?" Hamza asked softly. She sighed. "My wedding? I don't have a dress. I don't have anything anymore." Hamza sat beside her and took her hand. "Amina, listen to me. You still have everything that matters." Her eyes filled with tears. "How can you say that?" "Because a dress doesn't make a marriage. Love does. And you have that. You have us." Amina looked down, letting his words settle. She knew he meant well. She knew he was trying to hold her together. But even so, the emptiness inside her didn't just disappear. "It wasn't just a dress," she whispered. "It was my last piece of my mother. Hamza nodded. I know, and I wish I could bring it back. But I can help you move forward if you let me. Something in his voice, steady, warm, full of promise, made her chest loosen just a little. He wasn't trying to replace what she had lost. He was just trying to make sure she didn't drown in her grief. Meanwhile, wedding preparations moved forward, but they felt hollow. The house was filled with decorations, fabric, and boxes of sweets, but the energy was missing. Everyone felt the absence of Amina's excitement. Her aunts tried to cheer her up with new outfit suggestions. Her cousins tried to distract her with jokes. But nothing helped. Every dress they showed her felt wrong, too glittery, too modern, too different from what her mother had made with love. Amina shook her head after each one. No, that's not it. She wasn't being stubborn. She was grieving. Even the tailor who came to offer last-minute stitching looked nervous. We can make something beautiful, he said. Just tell me what style you want. Amina looked at the fabric he brought. She felt the smooth texture between her fingers. It was pretty, too pretty for her broken heart. I don't know, she said quietly. I don't know what I want anymore. That night, Amina stood in front of the mirror. She wore a plain white shower kameez, simple and soft. No embroidery, no sparkle, no memories. She stared at her reflection, trying to imagine herself as a bride. But all she saw was a girl who had lost too much too soon. She whispered to herself, "Can I really become a bride without Mama's dress?" The question twisted inside her, but then she looked closer, really looked. She saw her mother's eyes in her own, her mother's strength in her posture, her mother's hope in a way she still stood tall despite everything. She took a deep breath. "I may not have the dress," she whispered, "but I still have her inside me." It wasn't a full answer. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't healing. But it was the first small step toward accepting that her wedding didn't have to die with the dress, and that maybe, just maybe, she could still walk into her future, broken, but not defeated. Zara had barely slept since the fire. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Amina's face, hurt, shocked, broken. It was the kind of expression that stays in the mind forever, like a wound that refuses to heal. Days had passed, but the distance between them only grew wider. Amina didn't look at her, didn't speak to her, didn't even walk near her. And Zara didn't blame her. She had destroyed something precious, something irreplaceable. But the silence was killing her slowly, filling her with a fear she couldn't escape. Zara knew she couldn't undo what she had done, but she also knew she couldn't stay frozen in regret. She had to try, even if she failed. Zara stood outside Amina's door one morning. Her hands trembled as she raised them to knock. She rehearsed the words in her head 100 times, but none of them felt right. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I made a mistake." None of these even came close to the storm inside her. When she finally knocked, Amina didn't answer. Zara rested her forehead against the door. "Amina," she whispered, voice cracking, "I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, and I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know something. What I did wasn't about hating you." Still no response. Zara swallowed hard. "It was about hating myself." Her voice broke on the last word. It was the truth. The painful, ugly truth she had never been brave enough to say out loud. She felt small, ashamed, and painfully honest. But honesty didn't open the door. She waited a moment longer, then stepped away. At least she spoke. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Later that day, Zara walked through the busy market, ignoring the surprised looks as people whispered about her. News traveled fast, and she knew everyone had heard about what she did. Some shook their heads at her. Others glared as if she were a monster, but she didn't care. She wasn't here for them. She reached the small tailor shop at the end of the street, the one her mother used to visit. The old tailor, Master Raymond, looked up in surprise when Zara entered. "Zara, you haven't come here in years." She hesitated before speaking. "I need your help." He noticed the redness in her eyes. "Is this about the wedding dress?" Zara swallowed thickly. "Yes, I destroyed it." He didn't scold her. He didn't judge. He simply nodded, as if he understood pain in a way that needed no explanation. I know I can't replace what I burned, Zara continued, voice trembling. But I want to make something. Something for her. Not to erase what happened, but to show I'm not the same person I was that night. Master Raymond studied her for a long moment. Then he stepped aside and motioned toward his shells of fabric. Bring me what you have in your heart, he said gently. Zara felt her throat tighten. For the first time since the fire, she felt a flicker of hope. Zara touched cloth after cloth. Silk, chiffon, organza. None felt right. Some were too bright, some too modern, some too heavy. She closed her eyes and tried to remember her mother's hands guiding a needle, her soft voice explaining every stitch. Suddenly, her fingers brushed a piece of ivory fabric. Smooth, soft, gentle. It wasn't the same as the original dress, but something about it reminded her of her mother's warmth. This one, she whispered. Master Raymond smiled. Good choice. Zara spent hours describing what she wanted. A dress simple but elegant, modern but carrying the memory of the past. A dress Amina could love, even if it wasn't the same. It won't replace your sin, he said softly, but it may show her your heart. Zara nodded. That's all I want. Over the next 2 days, Zara worked beside the tailor, learning every step. She pricked her fingers more times than she could count. She stayed awake late into the night, stitching quietly under the small lamp in the shop. Every stitch felt like a confession. Every thread felt like a prayer. Every fold of fabric felt like an apology she couldn't speak aloud. She imagined Amina walking down the aisle in it. She imagined her smiling again. She imagined her heart softening, even if only a little. Sometimes she cried while she worked, silent tears dripping onto the cloth. She wiped them quickly, terrified they would stain the fabric. Master Raymond pretended not to notice. Finally, the dress was ready. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't as beautiful as the one their mother made, but it carried something the old dress didn't. Zara's fragile hope, stitched into every seam. When Zara held it up, her hands shook. She imagined giving it to Amina, imagined her reaction, imagined rejection, imagined forgiveness or none of it. What if she hates it? Zara whispered. Master Raymond placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Then she hates it, but she will know you tried. Zara nodded, though fear twisted inside her. As she walked home carrying the dress wrapped in delicate paper, her heart pounded. Every step felt like a step toward judgment. She didn't expect immediate forgiveness. She didn't expect miracles. But she hoped, just hoped, that this dress might open a small window in Amina's wounded heart. She reached the front door, hesitated, then whispered to herself, I'm ready, even if she isn't. With trembling hands and a heart full of fear and love, Zara stepped inside. The house was quiet when Zara stepped inside with the wrapped dress in her hands. Too quiet. It was a kind of silence that made every small sound echo, her breathing, her footsteps, even the beating of her own heart. Amina was in the living room, sitting on the sofa with her head bent. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes were distant, and her body held the weight of days spent crying. Zara stood at the doorway, frozen. She didn't know how to start, how to speak, how to walk toward her sister, without shaking apart. Finally, she forced herself to take a step. Amina, she whispered. Amina looked up slowly. Her eyes were red, but there was no anger in them, just a deep, painful emptiness. Zara wished she had yelled, wished she had shown anger. Anything would have been easier than this quiet heartbreak. What do you want? Amina asked softly. Her voice sounded like someone who had cried too much and had nothing left. Zara clutched the dress tighter. I made something for you, she said, stepping forward hesitantly. I know it can't replace what I destroyed. I know that, but I wanted to try. Amina's eyes dropped to the wrapped bundle. For a moment, there was no reaction, no surprise, no comfort, nothing, only silence. Put it down, she whispered. Zara gently placed the dress on the table, but she didn't step back. She couldn't. Her hands were trembling, and her heart felt too heavy to hold inside her chest. Amina, she said again, I need to tell you the truth. Amina finally looked at her, really looked. Her eyes were tired but sharp, and Zara felt like she was standing under a spotlight. Then say it, Amina said quietly. Zara took a shaky breath. What I did, burning the dress, it wasn't just anger. It wasn't just jealousy. It was everything I've been carrying since we were kids. I felt like I disappeared after Mama died. Like everyone expected me to be strong and perfect and loud, because that's what the family needed. And you got to be soft. You got to be held. You got to be protected. Amina blinked, confusion mixing with pain. Zara continued, words falling out faster now, like a dam had finally cracked. I felt invisible. I felt like every time you were loved, it meant there was less love left for me. I know it wasn't true. I know that now. But back then, when I was hurting, I blamed you. I blamed you for being loved easily. I blamed you for being Mama's favorite. And I never stopped resenting it. Her voice broke, and tears spilled down her cheeks. And when I saw you in that dress, so happy, so peaceful, something inside me snapped. I wasn't angry at you. I was angry at my own brokenness. But you paid the price for it. Amina's lips trembled. Zara wiped her face with shaking hands. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Zara whispered. I just needed you to know that burning the dress wasn't hate. It was a scream of someone who never learned how to ask for help. Amina didn't speak for a long time. Her fingers twisted in her lap, her breath uneven. When she finally looked up, her eyes glistened. You hurt me, she said softly, more than I thought anyone ever could. That dress was all I had left to Mama. It wasn't just cloth. It was her love, her memory, and you burned it. Zara winced, the guilt cutting deep. Amina's voice softened but didn't lose its strength. But even before the fire, I felt you pulling away. I felt your anger every time I smiled. I felt like I had to shrink around you. I didn't know why. Tears spilled down her cheeks too. You should have told me. I would have listened. I would have tried to understand. I never wanted you to feel alone. Zara covered her mouth with her hand, trying to swallow a sob. Hearing Amina say those words hurt worse than the silence. They sat there, facing each other, crying in the same room but separated by years of pain. Amina wiped her tears slowly. Her voice was gentle, but firm. I don't forgive you, she whispered. Zara nodded, crying harder. She had expected this. She deserved this. But Amina continued, I'm not closing the door either. Zara looked up, surprised. Amina's voice cracked. I need time. I need to heal. But I won't hate you. And I won't push you out of my life. Not completely. Zara covered her eyes, overwhelmed with relief and guilt. And the dress? Amina asked quietly, glancing at the wrapped package. Zara swallowed. It's not perfect, but it's honest. Amina didn't open it. Not yet. But she touched the edge gently, as if acknowledging the effort, the pain, the love stitched inside it. She looked at Zara again. This is a start, Amina whispered. Just a start. For the first time since the fire, hope flickered between them. Not strong, not bright, but real. A fragile beginning to something that would take time to rebuild. The morning of the wedding arrived quietly, with a soft golden light slipping to the curtains. The house felt different, warmer, calmer, like it had taken a long breath after weeks of holding everything inside. Amina sat in front of the mirror, her hands resting gently on her lap. Her new dress hung on the wardrobe door, glowing softly in the morning light. It wasn't the dress her mother had made. It didn't carry the same memories. But somehow, it carried something else. Strength, survival, and the courage to move forward. When she touched the fabric, she didn't feel pain anymore. She felt steady, like she had grown into someone she didn't know she could be. Hamza's mother adjusted the pata on her head. You look beautiful, Beta, she said softly. Amina smiled, but it carried a quiet sadness too. Thank you. Inside, she felt a mix of emotions, joy, nerves, hope, and a small ache for the dress she had lost. But she also felt proud of herself for standing again after everything had fallen apart. A soft knock came at the door. Amina stiffened for a moment, Recognizing the sound even before the door opened, Zara stepped inside, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She didn't come too close. She stayed near the wall, eyes lowered, as if afraid of stepping into a space she no longer had the right to enter. Amina's heart thumped. She wasn't ready for a long talk, but she wasn't going to shut her out either. "You look beautiful," Zara said quietly. "Thank you," Amina replied, her voice controlled but not cold. Zara hesitated, then lifted her eyes. They were soft, filled with guilt but also something tender. "Hope, maybe. I just wanted to see you before you left." Amina nodded. She didn't add anything else. It wasn't a moment for deep conversations. Not today. But Zara seemed to understand. She didn't push. She didn't cry. She simply offered a small, trembling smile and stepped back. Before leaving the room, she whispered, "I'm happy for you, Amina." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a fix. But it was enough for today. When Amina arrived at the venue, the soft music and warm lights pulled her into a world that felt gentle and safe. Guests whispered admiringly as she entered, their eyes full of warmth. But Amina's eyes searched only for one face. Hamza. He stood near the stage, waiting for her. When their eyes met, his expression softened, full of pride, love, and quiet reassurance. He didn't care about the dress. He didn't care about the chaos that led up to this day. He only cared that she was there, choosing him, choosing their life together. As she walked toward him, it felt like every step carried her away from pain and closer to healing. Hamza offered his hand when she reached him. She placed her hand in his, steady and sure. His smile told her everything she needed to hear. "You made it. We made it." Zara sat in the back, her hands twisting in her lap. She didn't dress like a perfect sister or a proud relative. She had chosen something simple, out of respect, out of humility. She watched Amina walk down the aisle in the dress she had stitched with her own trembling hands. Amina had chosen to wear it. That alone filled Zara's eyes with tears. When Amina reached the front, she turned her head briefly, just for a second, and looked at Zara. It wasn't a smile. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a message. "I see you." Zara lowered her head, overwhelmed. She wasn't healed. She wasn't forgiven. But she wasn't completely shut out either. And that tiny space of hope was enough for her to breathe again. The ceremony was simple, but filled with meaning. Every vow felt deeper because of what they had survived. Every blessing from the guests felt like a warmth wrapping around Amina's heart. And when the final prayer ended, Amina felt something clear and strong inside her. She wasn't the same girl who cried over a burned dress. She had grown. She had chosen love over bitterness. She had chosen healing over hate. When Hamza held her hand and led her forward, she walked with her head high. She wasn't just a bride. She was a woman who had rebuilt herself from ashes. The house felt lighter in the days after the wedding. The chaos, the whispers, and the tension had softened, replaced by quiet routines and small acts of connection. Amina returned home with Hamza, exhausted but glowing, carrying memories of ceremony that felt like a small triumph over all that had gone wrong. Zara was there too, sitting on the sofa, her hands folded, her posture nervous. She hadn't said much during the wedding, hadn't demanded attention, hadn't cried openly. But Amina knew she'd been watching every step, every gesture, every quiet smile. For the first time in a long time, they sat together in the same room, not fighting, not grieving, not keeping secrets. The silence between them was no longer suffocating. It was a chance for something new. Amina took a deep breath and spoke first. "Zara, I know it will take time. I can't forget what happened, and I can't pretend it didn't hurt. But I also know I don't want to lose you forever." Zara's eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't of guilt or rage. They were tentative, fragile hope. "I don't deserve your forgiveness yet," she said softly. "I know I hurt you more than anyone should ever hurt someone they love. But I want to try if you'll let me." Amina reached out and touched her sister's hand lightly. It was a small gesture, but it carried something stronger than words. Willingness, the beginning of rebuilding. In the weeks that followed, they began to take slow steps toward each other. Zara attended counseling sessions, learning to confront the anger and jealousy she'd held inside for years. She began to understand herself in ways she never had, and she shared small pieces of that understanding with Amina when she was ready to listen. Amina, for her part, practiced patience. She allowed herself to feel hurt, to feel cautious, but also to notice Zara's genuine efforts. She didn't rush forgiveness, but she started to let go of the bitterness that had weighed so heavily on her heart. They didn't talk about the dress at first. The char remained still sat in a box, a quiet reminder of the past. But slowly, they began to acknowledge the pain it represented. Not just the dress itself, but the years of unspoken resentment, jealousy, and grief. By speaking about it carefully, they began to untangle the knots in their relationship, stitch by stitch. One evening, after months of careful effort, Amina looked at Zara and said softly, "We may never erase the past, but maybe we can still make the future better." Zara nodded, tears falling again. "I'll do whatever it takes to be the sister you deserve." And for the first time, Amina believed it. The sisters had been through fire, literally and emotionally, but they were beginning to walk out together. It wouldn't be perfect. There would be moments of fear, anger, and doubt, but there was also hope, love, and the unbreakable bond of family. Amina realized that forgiveness wasn't forgetting and it wasn't excusing. It was choosing not to let the wound destroy her. And Zara realized that redemption wasn't easy, but it was possible as she faced her own pain honestly and humbly. The final morning, sunlight poured into their home, soft and golden. Amina and Zara sat together at the breakfast table, sipping tea quietly, sharing smiles that were genuine, small, and full of possibility. They had survived betrayal, grief, and anger. And now, they were beginning again, two sisters, imperfect but determined, stepping toward a future built on understanding, healing, and love. Even after devastation, some bonds endure, and some hearts, no matter how broken, can still choose to grow.